All right. So today I'd like to carry on the series and to speak about one of the more colorful aspects of Sukkot, which generally we tend to enjoy this. We tend to attend a number of events, Simchas Beis Hashoeva, which are these very joyous, sometimes rowdy even, like Sukkot Simcha events. As a young bacher, I remember, going from shul to shul in Mea Sha'arim and attending all the different Simchot Beis Hashoeva of the different Chassiduyos, and each one has its own dancing style and so on. But this is a part of Sukkot. Obviously, what we do today is a zeicha. It's a zeicha to the original Simchas Beis Hashoeva that used to take place in the Beis Hamikdash. And the question is, what's the idea? What are we expressing? What's this very unique concept of joy of Simchas Beis Hashoeva? The Mishnah says, Misha Loira, Simchas Beis Hashoeva in the Mikdash, Loira Simcha Miyamav. He doesn't know what joy is. If you haven't seen this, you don't know what it means to throw a party. Throwing a party is my expression, and it's a bit loose. But you don't know what true Simcha is. You don't know what true joyfulness, true, no holds barred, really a real release of joy in the time of Sukkot. And the question is, what meaning does this have? What are we trying to reenact today? How does this go together with the general framework of Chag HaSukkot? And I think that there are 2 points I'd like to introduce before trying to explain it. One of them is another aspect of Sukkot, which makes it very different from Pesach, for example. Pesach is a festival for Jews alone. No entry to Goyim. All right? And that makes sense. Pesach is Yetzias Mitzrayim. We come out of Mitzrayim. Pesach is our national birthday. Like I mentioned often, where we even start Leila Seder at home by singing Happy Birthday. It's I find it very effective to get kids into it. And we sing Happy Birthday to the nation, to Klal Yisrael, because Leila Seder is our Jewish birthday. Leila Seder is the beginning of our Jewish year, right? Chodesh Hazeh Lachem, Chodesh Nisan. Leila Seder, there's no room for Goyim there. It's very much a Jewish affair. And the whole of Pesach is celebrating Yetzias Mitzrayim. It's a celebration of this amazing event that took place on the 15th of Nisan, and we celebrate a whole week just for this event. Sukkot is universal. It's universal, number one, in its underlying nature. It's not the beginning of the Jewish year, it's the beginning of the universal year, right? That's what Chodesh Tishrei. Chodesh Tishrei is the beginning of the year of the world, the agricultural year. But also in a religious sense, Sukkot is a time when we include all of the non-Jews in our korbanos. The Gemara explains that the korbanos achag are keneged umos ha'olam, keneged the nations of the world, meaning they're invited to join in. Even in the Haftarah that we read on Sukkot, we find all of the nations coming to rejoice and to share in the festivities of Sukkot. They actually did. I'm not sure historically whether they did or not, but we were inviting them to do it. Meaning,
did anyone tell them? No.
Yeah, but it's a nevuah that this will happen.
That's an invitation for everyone to come in.
You have to let them know, next time.
Well, Shlomo HaMelech, in the inauguration of the Mikdash, so the Psukim in the Navi tell us that part of his inaugural speech was an invitation to all of the nations of the world to come and daven at this place. So how exactly did he get the word out? Where did he upload the post? Like what social media? I don't know. Good question. But in any case, as an idea, Sukkot is an idea or a time that includes all of the nations of the world. That's why Shmini Atzeres, right? The Medrash says Shmini Atzeres. The Kodesh Baruch Hu says I've been with everyone. All the goyim have been included in Sukkot. So now I want to date just with you, just with Klal Yisrael. So Sukkot is a time when everybody is included. And I think that that has something to do also with a special simcha of the time. And I'll try to explain. Beis Hashoeva. Why is it called Beis Hashoeva? What's being drawn over here? Right? Shoeva means to draw. Right? What are we drawing? So the answer is there's a special halacha. Chazal say it's halacha l'Moshe Sinai, which is called Nisach Hamayim. Nisach Hamayim, libation of water. We don't do this anytime during the year. During the year, there's other nesachim, right? But the nisach of the year, the libations of the karbanos, are nisach of yayin, of wine. We don't generally do nisach hamayim during the year. We only do it on Sukkot, and Chazal say it's a halacha l'Moshe Sinai. It's certainly something very esoteric. What exactly do we do? What is nisach hamayim? Basically, the idea is taking water from the shiloach, from this reservoir of water, taking water from the shiloach, bringing it into the mikdash, then pouring it, right, on the mizbeach, right, having this libation, pouring it on the mizbeach, and then it goes down through the sheetin, through these underground tunnels, these underground plumbing system, and then it goes back to the shiloach. And that's the whole thing. Meaning it's also a very unique avodah, right? Every other avodah, we're actually doing something. You know, we're making a sacrifice, we're cooking up a mincha, or frying a mincha, I should say. We're doing something, right? We're having some effect, right? Shechting an animal, zrika sadam. We're doing some avodah. Over here, we're actually not doing anything. We're taking water, we're bringing it into the mikdash, and then we're allowing it to go back. And that's it. It's like a remarkable thing. And the whole simcha of the Simchas Beis Hashoeva revolves around, is named after this concept of Nisach Hamayim.
Is it a fountain? Do you create a fountain, or is it like literally just a very boring?
Very boring.
Not like a juggle of water.
They juggled. The Gemara says that they used to juggle flames, they torches that were on fire. So that was exciting. But the main event was pretty boring. They brought in the water, they poured it down the mizbeach, and that was it. Not much to write home about. I don't think so, no.
Zeicha.
Right. Maybe that would be a suggestion to the planning committee, Mir Hashem, when the time will come. I like that idea. But in the mikdash itself, it was all a very boring affair. And the question is, what are we doing? What's this idea? What is Nisach Hamayim? So I think maybe we can say something along the following lines. Like I mentioned before, a few days ago, the general idea of Sukkot is that it's a time of asif, it's a time of gathering in, and as we bring in our produce, we want to place all of that joy, all of that feeling of contentment in what we do within the framework of a relationship with God. We want to bring a Kadosh Baruch Hu into our daily lives on the highest level, on the level of the greatest emotion that we experience, of the greatest joy. We want to bring a Kadosh Baruch Hu into there. And that's why we go out in the sukkah and we sense a Kadosh Baruch Hu's hashgacha, we sense a Kadosh Baruch Hu's taking care of us, just like he took care of us in the wilderness, whether it was Sukkot Mamash, Anani Akaved, whatever you want, God is taking care of us. And part and parcel of our joy, of our experience of the gathering in, of the harvest, is to have a Kadosh Baruch Hu in the picture, is to have him with us. But in the Mikdash, that having a Kadosh Baruch Hu with us goes up another level. It goes up another level in the sense of hashgacha. in the sense of the place where HaKadosh Baruch Hu is always present. Now, it's true that Eretz Yisrael itself, also the Torah specifies, singles out Eretz Yisrael as the place where Hashem's hashgacha is always here, right? Eretz asher einei Hashem lokecha ba mireish shana v'ad achri shana. It's a place where Hashem always sees. He's always looking, and that's why the pasuk says that Eretz Yisrael is different from Eretz Mitzrayim. Eretz Mitzrayim, Egypt, has its water from natural, from the river Nile. As it were, it's self-evident, it's self-contained. Eretz Yisrael is not like that. It needs to receive water from Shamayim. It needs to receive Kshamim from the Hashgacha of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And that's why Eretz Yisrael is special. Everything that we have, we sense that it's coming from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Nothing here is taken for granted. I think that's true about modern day Israel also. Nothing in Israel, you can't take anything for granted. I mean, the whole existence of Israel, even in the modern day sense, is miraculous and is precarious and is like a modern day miracle. So even in our own experience, we can relate to this special hashgacha of HaKadosh Baruch Hu on Eretz Yisrael. But within Eretz Yisrael itself, there's also different levels of hashgacha. And the place where HaKadosh Baruch Hu is always present, the place where his presence is always felt, the place where you know that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is running the show, as it were, is the Beis HaMikdash. That's the place where it's the most prominent, where it's the most forceful, right? It's the most felt, most tangible. And in this sense, when we take the water from the Shiloach, then this isn't just a combination of Shamayim v'Aretz. When we take the water from the Shiloach and we allow it to pour down from the Mizbeach, what we're doing is, as it were, we're joining a human action with something where human actions don't actually make any difference. All right? We're doing an action that doesn't have any impact. Meaning, the concept of taking the water from the Shiloh and then bringing it to the Mizbeach and just allowing it to go back is a type of avodah that the avodah itself declares. The avodah itself, as it were, proclaims, right? It makes a statement. What's the statement of the avodah? The statement is that we're not making any difference. We're doing an avodah where the avodah itself declares that everything is in the hands of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That what we're doing is just consecrating. What we're doing is we're doing an action of kedusha. We're doing an action of bringing something onto the mizbeach, which is an act of avodah, but it's an act of avodah that the content of this avodah is that it makes no difference, because ultimately the water just goes back to the shiloach. It doesn't make any difference. What the Nisach HaMayim says is that we are able to join. We're able to, as it were, connect to a place where HaKadosh Baruch Hu is running the show, where HaKadosh Baruch Hu is doing whatever he wants, whatever his will decrees, whatever he declares, and we're just joining on to that place. We're attaching ourselves to that level where everything is in the hands of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to that level of the Mikdash, without our actions actually making any tangible difference. They didn't do anything, right? That's the elevation. That's the special nature. Chazal say, Simchas Beis Hashoeva, misham ruach hakodesh, right? There's something elevated going on in the Simchas Beis Hashoeva. It's, as it were, we're saying, you know what? There's a certain level where we don't make a difference. We don't live on that level. During the year, outside the Mikdash, whatever we do, of course we make a difference. It's all up to us. It's about us taking responsibility. It's about us making sure that we do our hishtadlus. It's about our religious avodah, our mitzvahs, and so on. Everything that we do makes a huge difference, right? Of course it makes a big difference. But there's a certain level, or there's a certain insight, which is latent within the Nisach HaMayim, that ultimately the will of God, the divine will take place. The divine will is going to be realized whatever we do. Irrespective of our choices, irrespective of what we do, the divine will is going to be manifest. It's going to be realized. And that idea comes into play in the Nisach HaMayim. That the Mayim are going to be there anyway. They'll reach the same place, no matter what we do. All we do is attach ourselves as observer status, as it were, and beyond observer status as an avodah, but an avodah where we know, where the content of the avodah is that it's all up to him. And I think that this is the special simcha of the Simchas Beis Hashoeva. By the way, Rav Kook mentions a similar idea when he speaks about the tshuva. He speaks about tshuva of Adam, the tshuva that we have to do, which is of course a question of our bechira and our repentance and our going through everything that we need to do tshuva. But he also speaks about a tshuva of the world, that the world returns to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, somewhere outside the realm of human choice, right? It's as it were this concept of mayim. He speaks about it in the sense of mayim elyonim and mayim tachtonim, right? That there was a separation of water. Water is one of these unique elements that's mentioned in the Torah even before creation, right? It says, "Bereshis bara Elokim es hashamayim v'ha'aretz, v'ha'aretz ha'totzei v'voy v'cheshach ha'pnei tzorem baruch Elokim merachefes al pnei hamayim." Right? So there was water already there, right? And Chazal are very busy with this water, right? What's this water that was already there before Vayomer Hashem Yehi Or, before we cover Amayim, before the whole melacha of Ma'aseh Bereshis, there was already water there. And Chazal speak about the Mayim Elyonim and the Mayim Tachtonim. The Mayim Tachtonim, we know what they are. Mayim Elyonim, we know less about what they are. But somehow this is related also to the She'iva, to the Simchas Beis Hashoeva, this being connected with this Mayim Elyonim, this kind of primordial, very elevated version of life, right? Water is life, right? Mayim Chayim, water is life. And there's this elevated version of life that ours is only a mirror version of that, it's only a lesser version of that. And we're, as it were, connecting ourselves, being attached to this elevated version of the Mayim through the Simchas Beis Hashoeva. And I think that this is the special nature of the Simcha of the Beis Hashoeva, because usually we're very worried. We're very worried about what we're going to do, about how things are going to turn out. We're very anxious about making the right decisions for ourselves, for our families, for our communities. And naturally, having responsibility is a source of anxiety. It's a big blessing, right? We prefer responsibility to not having responsibility. By the way, in a range of surveys discovered that one of the primary reasons why people want a promotion at work is not just for the salary, but for the responsibility. Even though responsibility is tough, right? It gives you anxiety, but we want responsibility. But there's a certain level where that anxiety falls away. And that's the level where we realize that after everything is said and done, after all the choices are made, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is running the show. Ultimately, his will is going to be realized, whatever choices we make. And that really is an avodah that's revealed in tshuva, right? That our zonos, even our averos, becomes chuyos because they're also part of the divine will somehow. And that's the ultimate simcha that we find here, the unique simcha of the Simchas Beis Hashoeva, where we realize that, all of our avodah is just attaching ourselves to something higher. And in that higher place, all of the non-Jews also have a part, right? All of the goyim that sometimes we don't understand, what does the Kadosh Baruch Hu want with all these billions of people in the world? There's so few of us and there's so many of them, what's going on? And the answer is something. And they all have a part. every single one. And we don't know how to explain everything. We don't know exactly what each one's role is and what's the role of each and every nation and state and race. Who knows? But on Sukkot, we say everybody is included. When we have this insight that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is really running the show, and everything that we do is just attaching ourselves to this divine will, then that divine will is big enough, it's broad enough to encompass everything, to encompass all of the Goyim. On Pesach, that's not what we're busy with. On Pesach, we're busy with our own job, right? Our birth, our relationship to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and our role in the world. Amzu Yatzar Tili, for a reason. Tilasi Yisapera, the Pasuk says in Yeshayahu. But on Sukkot, that's not the point. On Sukkot, the point is to revel in this insight that everything is ultimately from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So in the Sukkah, we join our harvest, our own actions, with the understanding that everything is from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But in the Mikdash, even our own actions take on less or negligible significance. We pour the water and it goes back to where it came from. And that's this tremendous simcha, which Chazal are worried about, that it leads to a certain, it can lead to even a certain promiscuity. It can lead to a certain, you just lose control, as it were. Some of the actions that are described in the Gemara, some Chachamim were critical of these actions. How can you just lose control? How can you just allow yourself to have this unbridled joy, unbridled freedom, just to act however you want in this tremendous expression of joy? And the answer is that yes, there's an element of loss of control over here. There's an element of saying, you know what, everything is up to HaKadosh Baruch Hu here. It's the expression of the divine will, and we lose control in this unique simcha of the Simchas Beis Hashoeva. We're going to stop there because we have to daven.
Do you think there is a short one or two? Do you think there's a connection with this idea to where we're trying to get to on Purim as well?
Well, yeah, Purim is very much connected to this. Absolutely, Purim is a rabbinic Yom Tov. It's not a D'oraisa Yom Tov. But I think that the idea expressed here on the Torah Yom Tov of Sukkot is expressed in Purim on the D'Rabbanan level. And what's the difference between the Torah level and the D'Rabbanan level? The D'Rabbanan level of Purim is a Golus expression. It's an expression of the same idea in a context of the exile. Meaning, even though we're in the exile, and it's a time where everything is dark and black, and we don't understand anything, and our own choices are impossible. Think of Esther having to make a choice. Do I go into the king or I don't go into the king? And then Purim reveals that even though everything is hidden, but still HaKadosh Baruch Hu is running the show. He's calling the shots. So that's a special revelation of Purim, and it's also a revelation of our continued existence physically, despite and in spite of the hardships of the exile. But what's revealed in the exilic sense in Purim, on Sukkot, it's a revelation within the Mikdash, in Eretz Yisrael, in a revealed sense. Here it's not in the hidden, the exilic sense of Purim, in the Megillas Esther, which is hidden by definition. Over here it's a Megillas Gilui, right? It's not an Esther, it's explicit, it's within the Mikdash. And that's why we can have this very explicit avodah of Nisach Hamayim. We can't have that in Purim, we can't have that in the exile, but we can have that in on Sukkot.
So would that explain why by Sukkot, when you're in the base of English and you're seeing all the miracles, you can get to that madrega of like, it's all in the hands of Hashem, good, bad, whatever. Whereas Purim, in exile, when we don't have that, you need to find a way. So obviously
Purim,
with wine,
you have to get
how
drunk.
we found a way.
Absolutely, you have to get right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you have to lose your consciousness, as it were. You have to lose your basic faculties to be able to reach this insight. Whereas on Sukkot, you can reach the insight while keeping your faculties. So it's a nice comparison. Good. Thank you. Very good.